All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to our monthly YouTube Live. Welcome to 2019. For those of you first joining, if this is your first time ever seeing me on YouTube Live, welcome. And if you guys are coming back, thank you very much for joining me again for another YouTube Live session. We do these each and every single month. So if you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, please make sure you go ahead and do that right now. Hit the subscribe button, and you can also hit the little bell to turn on notifications, so that way you'll get notified when we go live each and every single month. So looks like we've got a good crowd coming in so far. Julian says, my first podcast joined live. Awesome. Welcome, Julian. Hopefully you guys can hear me coming in loud and clear. If you're having any issues, feel free to just restart your app, the YouTube app if you're watching on your phone, or refresh the page if you're on mobile. And if you are watching this live, you should be able to see the live chat. So definitely want to hear from you guys and hear all your questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. We're going to chat for about an hour today. Usually how we do these sessions, I'm going to go over a couple of the top news stories, what we've seen going on in the rideshare industry, a couple of the latest app updates, and then we'll spend a majority of the time where you can just ask me anything, and I'll do my best to answer. And like we always do, if you can make it to the end of the hour, we'll be doing a giveaway. So I've got a couple little prizes over here. I haven't decided what we'll be giving out today, but we've got a hat, we've got a book. Maybe we'll even just give away some gift cards. Who knows? We'll see how I'm feeling at the end of the YouTube Live, but we'll do definitely a nice little giveaway. It looks like last month, I want to give a little congrats to Francesco, Craig, and Mary. They won our YouTube Live giveaway last month of the book. So congrats to the three of you. And I know we sent out 3 owl dash cams recently, posted about that on social media. So if you didn't win, unfortunately, I'm sorry, but we did send out a few, and we posted links to that in that video, because I know a few of you are wondering if you had won the cam, and that was a pretty cool giveaway. So I'll definitely look. That was a popular one, so I'll definitely look to do more of those kind of cool giveaways this year. Just got to get the products for free from the companies, because those cameras are pretty expensive. So that was a really cool giveaway for me, and it was around Christmas time. So looks like we got a bunch of people watching right now. Jeanette says, glad to be here. Kim says that video was funny. The app channel is here. Senia says first time watching live. So awesome. We've got a lot of newbies, actually, it looks like. So really big thanks to everyone who's coming here for the first time. And we'll go ahead and get started with this session. And like I said, make sure you stay tuned to the end. We'll do a nice little giveaway. And yeah, I think not often, we do a lot of different giveaways on the YouTube channel. And I feel like if you guys watch enough of the stuff, you should have probably won something by now, because we've been doing a monthly giveaway, and then we're giving away dash cams all the time and stuff like that. So lots of opportunities to win. And I'm excited to hear what you guys have for me today, what questions you guys have, and this will be a lot of fun. So I want to start off, by talking a little bit about some of the top news stories we've seen. Now, honestly, over the past month, I think with winter break and the holidays, I didn't see a ton of news stories pop up in the past month. I mean, there have been some stories about Uber and Lyft IPO. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on that, but it looks like both Uber, Uber is looking to IPO at $120 billion. Lyft is looking to IPO at $15 billion. So it looks like we're going to have a lot of action there. I don't know how much it's going to really affect drivers, though, because obviously we don't get any of that money when these companies IPO. Now, one thing that could affect drivers is that when these companies IPO, they will have a lot more money. And so I don't know if that means potentially more bonuses or better offers or what it might mean, but they will have more money because, usually, I don't know, I'm not a finance guy, but it seems like when you IPO, you obviously get to sell some of the stock, and so you make money that way. So we'll see what happens with that. Rideshare Genius is chiming in. He's got a great YouTube channel if you guys want to check it out, and he's also my videographer, so welcome, Ezra. He says, have either Uber or Lyft demonstrated potential for profitability? And I guess I would say no. So that's going to be the interesting thing with the IPO. And, for you guys to understand, both these companies are losing a ton of money. Uber lost $4 billion each year the last couple of years. And if you think about it, there's really only 2 two places they can get more money from. They can charge the riders more, or they can take more from drivers. And, I don't know if they're going to be charging riders anymore anytime soon, because then, they're going to be doing less rides overall. And it does seem like, they're looking to charge drivers more, whether it's by increasing their service fee or increasing their commission, upfront pricing, and kind of the really high commissions that they sometimes take on fares are probably the top complaint in my inbox. So if you guys have any questions or concerns there, I'm definitely happy to answer any questions you might have. SD Ute fan says, Uber is bleeding money, LOL. G Fred says, nothing, you're gonna get nothing. So I think you're right. Unfortunately, with the Uber and Lyft IPO, drivers aren't gonna be a part of this. So I don't know that it's huge news for drivers, but we'll definitely keep an eye on it. Steel City says, didn't Uber post profitability from last quarter? Yeah, usually, even though they're a private company, they do post their numbers. If you guys are interested, the information is a tech news website, and they usually post all of Uber and Lyft's profitability numbers. So yeah, that's definitely something to keep an eye on. So we've got the IPO situation, and then this other thing that I want to talk about briefly before I start answering all your questions, and I see a lot of good questions coming on. I'm definitely going to answer all of those, so stay tuned, be ready. But the other thing that we're already starting to hear a lot from drivers is typically, the holidays are really busy, right? New Year's Eve is the busiest night of the year. This year it was a little hit or miss for drivers, but everything leading up to New Year's Eve is big, and then all of a sudden in January, February, March, there's this big slowdown, right? People aren't traveling as much. I guess people are going back to school. It's cold. The winter, I think, keeps people from going out, whatever. There are a lot of reasons, but we call it the winter slowdown with drivers right now. A lot of drivers reaching out to me and saying, hey, it's a lot slower than normal. So you may be wondering, kind of what you can do to offset that slowness. So if you guys are experiencing the winter slowdown, I'd love to know what markets you're in, and also kind of, what you plan to do about it. Because I think that's one of the tough things for drivers is obviously that you are a little bit at the mercy. You can only do so much about the market you're driving in and the requests that you're getting from Uber and Lyft. You can only do so much. But I know my tips over the years for drivers has always been, this is the time where you really have to diversify. I know we already got a question about driving for Grubhub. Obviously most of you, I think if you're watching my channel, I'm sure you're doing both Uber and Lyft, at least at a minimum, but maybe this is the time to consider delivery. And if you don't like delivery, maybe you need to suck it up and try it anyways. Because, if it's slow in your market because of the winter slowdown, this is a time where you have to kind of go above and beyond what other drivers are doing, since you can't control the volumes of the requests, but you can control how hard you work, the times you work, the places you work, right? So if you're not normally getting up early, maybe you're getting up a little bit early each and every day to see what the demand is like. Maybe you're trying new places, trying new times. I think this is the time where you really have to kind of think, okay, what is every other driver doing, and what can I do that goes above and beyond every driver? Because this winter slowdown is definitely real. It seems like it happens every single year. And then especially from the volume of emails from drivers that I'm getting, it seems like all over the country it's happening. So I'm curious to know if you guys are experiencing this. Doug says Miami is slow. Johnny says less and less surge in Minneapolis. Let's see, any other? SD Ute fan says seeing less and less surge in San Diego. So, I think with the surge issue, with this new flat rate surge that has been rolled out to a lot of cities, I know it just hit San Francisco and a few other places on Uber. This is another thing that I'm hearing from drivers that, is really killing the surge. You're not getting those big long trips anymore. Fortunately, it hasn't hit Los Angeles yet, but the writing seems to kind of be on the wall that the new flat rate surge, is going to be coming. So that's something I'm not really looking forward to, but we'll sort of see how that all plays out. Link. If you guys have no idea what I'm talking about, I'll go ahead and leave a link to a blog post we wrote about new surge. But it definitely seems like most people are kind of confirming that, yes, Boston is slow, less busy in Orlando here. Steel City in Pittsburgh says slower than molasses here, slow in South Florida, even with it being in season. So I definitely think that those tips I gave are going to help with the winter slowdown. But, at the same time, just kind of think about that, right? That really you want to take advantage of the times when it's most busy. Maybe this is your first season driving rideshare, and if you make it till next year, kind of remember that, right? Remember that, hey, maybe I should work a little extra in September, October, November, December, because January, February, March tend to be a little bit slower, in addition to everything else that I mentioned. So definitely keep that in mind. Yeah, the app channel says furloughed government workers should take advantage of driving. Good opportunity. We did a video, actually we did a video and an article about how this might be a good gig for rideshare drivers. Got some interesting feedback. I think some people thought we were a little too political in that video. I wasn't really trying to be political at all, though the title may have been a little bit aggressive. I ended up changing the title, but basically just kind of highlighting that for all these government workers, why rideshare driving might be a good gig. Of course, if you're going to be a little selfish, though, conversely, right, also, if more drivers are coming onto the platform, it's going to hurt you. So, I guess there's two sides to that equation for sure. But, those are sort of the two things I've noticed and I've recognized, but definitely would love to hear from you guys. The app channel says it's all about strategy. So definitely agree. Robert says Uber is dead in Manhattan, black and SUV. So I don't think I've seen one driver actually say that, it's not dead or it's not slow. So kind of, I think all of that anecdotal evidence that I was talking about, and, just really, but honestly, like this is like the 5th year I've been doing Uber and Lyft, and every single year we call it the winter slowdown for a reason. It is real. It's not kind of like just something that we talk about. It definitely is noticeably slower. So, I think strategy plays a big part, and I'm happy to go into any questions that you might have. So let's see what we got here. All right, so the Uber and Lyft driver. Well, first of all, it looks like we got our first super chat from the Uber and Lyft driver, so that's really awesome. I appreciate that. $20, that's the biggest tip I've gotten in a while. So thank you very much. Don't forget, with taxes, you can claim the 25% that overtakes if you do itemized for the higher end services such as XL, Select, and Black Car. Yeah, so taxes are coming up. We're actually going to be updating our tax guide, and I'm sure we'll get at least a few questions on taxes right now, but just what you guys need to know is typically at the end of the month. And so if you haven't gotten it already, you will get it by the end of the month. And that's when you'll sort of have the ability to start filling out all of your taxes and everything like that. And we'll be updating our tax guide. We'll do a new video on how you can handle your taxes as a rideshare driver. And usually we do like kind of a walkthrough or a review of TurboTax, that type of video. So it's the most popular software, TurboTax, H&R Block. I don't really care what you use, but we'll do sort of a walkthrough in case you need help there. So I'll go ahead and leave a link to our article, and then definitely stay tuned to the blog and the YouTube channel. In the next month or two, we'll be publishing a ton of content, update on kind of what you need to know for taxes, and then how you can actually do your taxes with TurboTax, for example. So thank you very much to the Uber and Lyft driver for that $20 tip. That was awesome. Appreciated that. I'm already making money. Steven says, I got a $100 tip Saturday night during the winter storm. So this is another thing. We just did a video on the YouTube channel called Should You Drive During a Snowstorm? And the thing that I liked about, I'll leave a link to it. The thing that I liked about this video is that obviously it is a little bit more dangerous driving during a snowstorm, but there's a lot of good comments and feedback in that video, because you can definitely, when it's raining in places like California or when it's snowing in other cities, of course the earnings potential, or maybe not of course, but the earnings potential does go up. So that's one thing that you can try to take advantage of. Now it is a little more dangerous. You got to make sure you have the right car and the right tires, or 4x4, or whatever you need. I don't know. I don't live in snow. I don't know exactly all the details what you need, but I know you can't just go do it with a regular car, at least if you want to be safe and smart. So that's something that you can definitely keep in mind. Gourmet Thursday says, I chose not to drive during the snowstorm. So this would be my first question to you guys. I want to know, what do you think about sort of driving in snow, or driving even in rain? Maybe if you're in heavy rain, if you're in California, do you think it's worth it? Because we typically see lots of surge. People don't want to bike. They don't want to walk anymore. They may not even want to take public transportation because, maybe they normally walk to the subway or walk to the train, and that's how they connect. They don't want to walk the 10 or 15 minutes in the rain or the snow. So I'm curious to know if you guys think it's worth it or not. I personally have definitely found that it's worth it. I don't mind, in California, we don't have snow, but I don't mind driving in the rain. And, I've found that if you kind of position yourself right, that surge can really be something you take advantage of. Even if, you kind of are just kind of constantly checking the app and go out when you see that higher level of surge. SD Youth Fan says, go for it. Jeanette says, never. Gourmet Thursday says, I'm scared to get into an accident. And Shimon says, yeah, but in the Bay Area, there are no more surges. So that's a good point, Shimon. Now with this new flat rate surge, I mean, I don't know how worth it is anymore, to be honest, to go drive in like a snowstorm or a rainstorm. So Dan says, know your limitations. Snow is not a different animal. And, one piece of advice that I would give is, I think if you grew up driving in snow or you sort of know what you're doing, you're going to be a lot better than someone like me who, let's say I ended up moving to Minneapolis and tried to drive in the snow. I'd be a total rookie. I'd be a total amateur. I wouldn't know what I was doing. I've gotten like a Jeep stuck on the beach before, and I had to have, actually someone who saved me was from Minneapolis. They were like, oh, I drive in snow all the time. And they sort of showed me how to like reverse and go forward and reverse and go forward and sort of hard pack the sand. And then that's how you get out of it. So definitely, if you know what you're doing, I think that you can take advantage of it. But if you don't, it may not be worth the risk. So that's something that you can definitely keep in mind. Rog Hiles has a great little tip here. He says it's odd days for rain here in Phoenix, but lately there's been a lot of it. And when it does rain, I do great. It's worth it. I also carry umbrellas and loan them out. So, that's one thing too that, I think you can like stand out from 95% of drivers. Let's say it's like a heavy rain, a rainy day, and you're in a place like Phoenix where it doesn't normally rain. Most people probably aren't prepared, right? So I'd be curious to know what Rog does, but, maybe Rog is, sending them a quick text when he arrives and saying, hey, I'm your Uber driver, I'm here, I can come to your door with an umbrella if you would like, right? Like that level of service is gonna, no driver is gonna go out of their way to do that. But on a rainy day, right, I wouldn't every day I'm driving, but on a rainy day where you can actually provide a lot of value to your customer, they will they could very easily reward you with tips. And it sounds like Rog is getting good tips because of some of the strategies that, he's doing. And, maybe that's not exactly what you do, but I think if you're thinking like that and your mindset is like that, you can definitely take advantage that way. So let's see. The Chuck Taylor says, here in DFW, I hear all the time about drivers that cancel riders when they find out it's a long drive. I've only been driving for 3 months, so I don't understand that strategy. Now, first of all, what I should mention is that, a lot of people, I guess a lot of people may not know this, but on Lyft, you can actually see where the rider is headed, but not until you're approaching their destination, right? So you accept the ride, but once you get about 1 minute out on Lyft, it actually shows you where they're headed. So you can kind of avoid any awkward showdown if they're going somewhere. And, obviously you can't cancel at that point all the time because your cancellation rate will go up. But this is definitely a strategy that I think is smart to do it once in a while. It's a little dicier if you start the trip, see where they're going, and they're going 1, 2, 3 hours away. And, I think at that point, we've got a couple good videos on this, but I think at that point it's tough because you kind of have to make a business decision, right? If you're doing this all the time and, you're seeing that riders headed to a part of town you don't like or too far or whatever it might be, I don't think that's a very good experience and it's not something I would do. But I mean, once in a while, if you get a trip, let's say it's 1 out of every 20 or every 50 trips, you accept the trip and you see that they're headed, an hour and a half away, you always have the right to let that passenger know, hey, unfortunately, I can't do this trip. I have to be home in an hour to grab my son or whatever it might be, whatever the reason is. But, let's say it's going to take you out to the middle of nowhere and you're not going to be able to get a return trip. That trip may not be worth it. And you may be able to make more money by staying in the downtown area. Or if you're on a Quest bonus, for example, where you need to do 20 trips, you probably don't want a 1 hour long trip. So that is kind of what that strategy is. Who asked that? I think that was the Chuck Taylor. So hopefully that answers your question. Steven Smith says the 3-hour ride, bring it on. So I'd be curious to know how you guys handle those situations. And honestly, with the new rate system where in a lot of cities, Uber is lowering the per mile rate and upping the per minute rate, those long trips are actually not as worth it. I mean, they're still worth it for sure, but they're even less worth it now because you get paid more for minutes than you do than you used to in the past for miles. So those long trips used to be super valuable for me, and I would almost always accept a long trip. When I was going 70 miles an hour, you're making a lot of money. But now, the calculations are not looking as pretty. So yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on. High Testosterone says long trips suck, bro. The Uber and Lyft driver chiming in with another $10. Awesome. I'm going to get rich, I think, tonight just from the Uber and Lyft driver. Thank you very much. He says, surge in my area. With long trips, they still give you a substantial portion of the surge rates, meaning whenever I had a 450 surge, they paid me double for the ride because it was a long trip. So I think what you're trying to say is that whenever you had a 450 surge, they paid you double for the ride because it was a long trip. I don't know. Are you on new surge or are you on old surge? But feel free to let me know and I can answer that. Let's see. High Testosterone says, all right, so this is a good question. Is McDonald's a better career option over Uber? And, I've worked a lot of service jobs. I've done every type of job imaginable, and especially a bunch in the gig economy. But I don't know how much McDonald's or other fast food pays, but I'm pretty sure, most drivers report earning around $15 to $20 per hour before expenses on average. And I'm pretty sure McDonald's pays less than that. Of course, there aren't any expenses with working at McDonald's, but I would say even if the pay is comparable, I would much rather work 40 hours a week as a rideshare driver or a Postmates delivery person or anything. If the income is the same, I would much rather do rideshare or any other gig just because you have that schedule flexibility, right? You can work 40 hours whenever you want. You can do 80 hours one week and 0 hours the next week. I've never heard of having that at McDonald's or any other service level job. I think it gets a little bit closer, maybe like In-N-Out. Like I saw an article the other day, like In-N-Out managers, I think make like really good money. I want to say it's like close to $100,000, if not more. There are a few chains where I think there's potential to work your way up. So if that's your career goals or the path you want to take, I think you can definitely go forward with that. So hopefully that makes sense. Let's see, Robert. Oh, I like this comment from Robert. He says, no such thing as a bad part of town. The worst riders have been picked up in Santa Monica and Beverly Hills. So, that's definitely a good point, Robert. And I mean, for me, I actually grew up in Los Angeles and, I've been driving rideshare in Los Angeles for almost 5 years now. And there's definitely times, I'm not going to lie, right? There's definitely times where I'm picking people up in certain parts of LA and it feels a little dicey. It feels a little shady, but I'm also a pretty big guy and, feel pretty safe. I've got a dash cam in my car. So I've never, not done a trip because of that or not dropped someone off because of that. But one thing that I've liked about rideshare driving has kind of opened me up to kind of your observation, right? I mean, you get some pretty shitty passengers in Beverly Hills, right? And sometimes your worst passengers are actually in that part of town. And if you guys missed my last sort of video that we did, I actually picked up, I picked up a passenger in Beverly Hills. His name is J.O. Some of you guys didn't like that video. Some of you guys did. I'll leave a link in the show notes if you want to go check that out. But definitely appreciate that comment. Dave, the Uber slave, says, Compton people give me great tips. Beverly Hills people almost never tip. And I kind of agree with that sentiment, Dave. I know you've got a bunch of great videos on your YouTube channel, a lot of kind of like actual experience with passengers. So I definitely recommend if anyone wants to see some in-action rides, definitely go check out Dave, the Uber Slaves channel. And I think he also has one of the best rideshare YouTube names. I think it's pretty funny. So keep up the good work, Dave. And I totally agree, though. I think what it is like, I've worked in the service industry before. And, of course, now with what I do, I'm always tipping on everything that I do. But I think people can empathize a lot more with others who are actual service workers, right? It's kind of like the rich people who have never worked at McDonald's or have never worked as a waiter or bartender or whatever it might be. They tend to be the ones that tip the worst. So, kind of keep that in mind. Travel to Eternity says, I loved your video with the pseudo Joel Osteen. So that is correct. That was the video I was referring to. So thank you for that. And Eric says, you have to click that you arrive a minute away on Lyft. Yeah, sorry, that's right. You have to actually click that you arrive. And then Another question from Erica says, do you think you're supporting the shutdown by encouraging government workers to sign up for rideshare? So that's a good question. And I kind of already mentioned this video we did on how, government workers affected by the shutdown can go drive rideshare and make some money. And I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I try to stay away from all the political topics and not really get into any of that. But I mean, really kind of what I see is that for people, I don't really know what's going to go on with the shutdown. And I just see people, if someone comes to me and says, hey, I want to get started with rideshare, I'm going to help them. That's kind of just how I am and who I am. If I see an opportunity for people to be helped by driving rideshare, I'm going to help them because, I know it's helped me a lot along the way. So that's kind of how I treat it. I know that, a lot of things are often out of our control. I don't like relying on other people or, Democrats, Republicans, whatever they're going to do, they're going to do. I personally am not going to be able to have much of an impact. So if let's say I was a government worker, I'm not going to rely on anyone else. I'm going to go, figure out a way to make some money and pay some bills. And I think that if you're in that type of mindset, driving rideshare or even working for some of these other services is a pretty good gig for this type of situation. So let's see. James says, actually, we got another super chat. So David Sincere says, first time I ever did a super chat. God knows I've got a lot of information from you over the years. Thanks. So David, thank you very much for your super chat. I really appreciate that. And James says, where is Christian? So Christian is actually out sick today. I think he injured himself and then is feeling sick. And so he's got like multiple ailments. So I gave him a few days off for him to rest and recover. So hopefully he'll be back stronger than ever next month. High Testosterone says, Dave, the Uber slave is slacking. He's not doing any live streams anymore. So Dave, maybe you need to pick up your live streams. Boston says, some of my favorite passengers have been dropped off in the worst parts of the city. I drop them off and get the heck out of there, LOL. So I totally agree with that sentiment. Maybe that's actually a good topic for a video that I can do in the future. Johnny K471 says, what do you think of Fare as a way to lease a car? So Fare is actually Uber's kind of go-to vehicle leasing option now. So now they've got, now they partner with a company called Fare, and they do have a higher upfront start fee. I think it costs like $500 to start upfront, but then they typically have lower weekly fees, $130. I think it starts at $130. We've got an article, and I believe we did a video too that you guys can go ahead and check out. If you guys are interested in learning more about Fare, I'll leave a link to our article and video. But for Fare, for the most part, I think it definitely, if you're in the situation where you don't have a car and you're kind of looking to do it medium to long term, it's one of the better options. I think. We actually have a code too. If you use our code RSG100, you'll get $100 off that start fee. And I know they're working on a new program too, which I don't think I can talk about yet, but they are coming out with a new program for California drivers, which is going to be a lot more flexible and cheaper, and definitely something to keep an eye on. So I would, keep an eye on that. The Uber and Lyft driver says, another super chat. Man, the Uber and Lyft driver, you are going to pay for my dinner with my wife, my next date night with my wife. Thank you very much. So far, I think you've contributed $30. So we're at like Applebee's level right now, maybe TGI Fridays. So I really appreciate that. And he says, I do not mind spending money on things I feel is worth being heard. Plus, it is a tax write-off. I guess that's a good point, right? If you're contributing on this super chat right now, it's a tax write-off. He says, by the way, I'm in Atlanta. We do have the new surge. And that's a good point too, that actually, if you guys have bought my book, or if you've bought my course, or, any training materials, really, it doesn't even have to be anything that I'm selling. I don't sell that much. But, if you guys are buying anything with taxes, this is super important to track all of your expenses. We've got a couple articles that we're going to be doing that are talking about really how you should honestly be paying next to nothing. You should be reporting as close to zero as possible as a rideshare driver at the end of the year, just because of the mileage deduction, deducting whatever percentage of your cell phone you use for your business. There's a ton of, I use a GoPro in my car sometimes as a dash cam. So I deduct 90% of the cost of that, even though I take it on vacation 2 weeks a year. So there's a lot that you can do, and we'll chat about all of that so that you guys can really maximize your tax deductions, because I want you guys to pay as little as possible in taxes. So Stevenson says, what about Maven Gig? So I haven't personally done Maven Gig yet, but they do have Chevy Bolts, which are pretty cool. I never remember, is it Bolt or Volt? Whatever the electric car is, it has a 220-mile range. It comes with free charging. It's a little more expensive. I think it's a couple hundred or a little bit more than that per week, but it definitely is I really like the Chevy Bolt. It's a good car for rideshare drivers, and it's got a pretty good range, even though it's an electric vehicle. The free charging, I've heard from a lot of drivers in LA that it's not as good as it sounds, just because the free charging stations are always taken, so you don't really get to take advantage of it as much. But that's definitely something that you guys can look into. If you guys are interested in all the different vehicle options, so let's say you have a car, or let's just say you don't want to use your own car for rideshare, you don't have one that's eligible. We actually have a vehicle marketplace on the website where you can go and compare and contrast all the different options. So that's definitely a good option there. Let's see. The app channel says the app channel gave me a what is this, 190? I don't know, I can't tell. 190. I guess the super chat was 199, but he says $5 UberX or Uber Eats. So thank you very much for that. Man, I'm killing it on the super chats tonight. Usually I don't get any, so big ups for that. That's awesome. I'll have to do extra giveaways at the end. We'll give away a bunch of stuff at the end. So appreciate that. Nicole says, do you know how much car insurance would be with Uber or Lyft, and also the carrier names? I mean, it really depends, but I've seen quotes anywhere from $50 to $200 a month for rideshare insurance. But most people already have personal insurance, so it's really dependent on kind of what you're already paying in personal insurance, right? If you're a good driver or a bad driver. What I have found, though, is that now that there's so many options in all the big to medium-sized states, is that a lot of drivers who just haven't shopped around for rideshare or for personal insurance in a while, like the last time you looked at your insurance needs was probably years ago, right? They're going out and just comparing a bunch of quotes, and they're actually getting rideshare insurance for cheaper or the same price just because they haven't shopped around in a while. So we've got a marketplace on our website that I'll leave a link to right now in the live chat. And you can kind of go and look up what state you're in. And we've got a bunch of recommended agents, and we'll tell you all the different companies that you can use in your state too. So Rideshare Revolution, another good YouTuber. He does a lot of good live streams. You guys can go check out his channel. He says, I'm deducting 65,000 miles and 5,000 in donations. Curious to see what my tax burden will be. And yeah, I totally think that for someone like you who's doing a ton of miles, and I'm sure that you've got a lot of other things you can tack on there, I think it should be pretty close to zero for a lot of people. Especially, honestly, the more aggressive you are, you can kind of really get your tax burden down. So let's see, what other questions do we have coming in? If I missed anyone's questions, definitely feel free to ask them again, because we have a lot of questions coming in, so I do tend to miss some. Michael Hartman says, Maven is a ripoff. They do not take their cars in San Francisco. Now, Michael, it's interesting. I actually just got an email from a friend who wanted to write a guest post about Maven Gig, and he told me he had a terrible experience with Maven Gig also in San Francisco. So that's something that, maybe keep in mind. Ed says, I hated that video you made in Tesla. So, I guess some people liked that video, and some people loved it, or some people liked it and some people hated it, whatever. Gromito says, Gromito, I can't remember. I know we chatted about this before. I can't remember how to say your name, but Gourmet Thursday, what phone do you use? I had a Galaxy Note 3 that was terrible. Phone upgrade could be in order. So I actually just upgraded right here to, let's see, I'll show you guys right here. That's my son. I just upgraded to the iPhone 10 Max S, or whatever the new big one is on the iPhone. So I was using a Galaxy and I switched over to iPhone and wanted to give it a shot and see it how it tests out. So that's the phone I'm using right now and definitely enjoying it. I kind of like being in that Apple ecosystem. I can iMessage my wife and FaceTime with her and my mom when she's babysitting my son and stuff like that. So I like it so far. Let's see. The Uber and Lyft driver with another super chat of $5. Awesome, man. Thank you very much. This is great. You're killing it tonight. He says, how do you feel about hire car? Personally, I rent out cars to drivers on that platform, but I would love to know what people think about the platform. So we've got a review of hire car on our website. And I guess what I would say with hire car back, we've heard from a lot of drivers who have gone through it and, I would say that they've had success, right? They rented a car or they were renting out cars on the platform. And the Uber and Lyft driver, we also have a podcast interview with a driver in Chicago who rented cars on hire cars. So definitely check that out if you can find it. If not, send me an email, I'll help you find it. But for the most part, it is pretty expensive. Rideshare Revolution says hire car is way too expensive, but that's because they're renting from individual owners. So, I mean, the individual owners get to set the price, and it's a marketplace. No one is making you rent from hire car. There are cheaper options out there, but Fare, for example, it requires a higher upfront fee, and it's a much cheaper weekly fee. And so, if you stick with it for a while, that option is going to be a lot cheaper. But for someone who, maybe only can get into the car, right? Hire car does have that for you. They've got a ton of variety of cars depending on the city because it's just individual owners renting out their cars. I've actually heard a lot of the owners, like yourself, Uber and Lyft driver, that are renting their cars out with good success. So that could be an option for people. High Testosterone says, what the hell is hire car? So it's a service. So thanks for asking that because I probably should explain it. It's basically a marketplace that connects vehicle owners with rideshare drivers who want to rent a car. And I left a link in the live chat where you guys can go and learn a little bit more about hire car. But I would definitely recommend going to our vehicle marketplace because we got all the options there, kind of compared and contrasted. And yeah, for someone who already has their own vehicle, maybe got a great deal on a 2 to 3 year old Prius, I bet all of those vehicle services seem pretty damn expensive. But if you don't have a car or you don't have a job or you don't have a down payment, that may be one of your only options. But I would definitely work hard to save up as quickly as possible and get your own vehicle because that's typically what we find. You can get kind of the best bang for your buck. So hopefully that answers there. Oh, but what I was going to say about hire cars, go read the comments on that article. There's definitely, what I would say, some people with negative experiences. Of course, people tend to leave comments. I haven't, deleted any of the positive or negative comments. All the comments that are on that hire car article are accurate. So I'd recommend going through that and just kind of understand, right, that they're, the company is there, but they have all the same like normal challenges of like an Uber or Lyft customer service. So if everything goes right, it can work out well. But if issues do arise, you might be a little bit on your own, and you kind of have to be proactive with them. I think that's the best word to describe it. Abdullah says, don't try Fare or even think about it. All right, well, I would love to hear why you think that. And Johnny says, I'm getting my Fare car tomorrow. We'll let you know what I think in a month or so. And I mean, honestly, with a lot of these vehicle services and just I think in this industry in general, if everything goes smoothly and you don't run into any issues or problems, you're approved quickly, you get the car and, the owner did a good job taking care of it. It can be a great experience. It's just when the issues arise, when you get there and the car wasn't clean before you and you try to call hire car, you try to call Fare, not trying to single out any company, that's when the problems start, right? That's when it's like, oh, you can't get a hold of them or they're going to charge you anyways. So just kind of keep that in mind that, that's what can happen. Abdullah says, horrible customer service. So, I mean, yeah, feel free to elaborate. Rideshare Revolution says a $40 a day car on hire car was around $56 a day after all the fees. Rideshare driver Dustin says, do you think the government shutdown is killing the trips out there? So good to see you, Rideshare driver Dustin. And thanks for your recent video on my video. You guys can go check out his YouTube channel. He's got a very popular YouTube channel. And a lot of the videos he does get a lot more views than mine. So you can go check out his channel. But to answer your question, I don't know. I think that it's easy to blame the government shutdown. 800,000 workers, not going to and from work, as maybe it's slower. But I think it has a lot more to do with just in general, January, February, March. We call this a winter slowdown for a reason, right? It's always slower this time of year. I think it's easy to kind of blame the government shutdown for that. But I don't know. I can't imagine too many government workers are the types. Like when I'm driving during commuting hours, it's not usually like government workers that I'm taking to and from work. I think typically they tend to drive themselves, or it's usually a little different. It's maybe more like the younger millennial types in a big city that are commuting to or from work, or someone that's a little more well off. So I don't know that it's having a huge impact, to be perfectly frank. So that is kind of, Jay says also the contractors that the government uses. Yeah, that's true. There are a lot of contractors. Daddy Combs. Okay, third request. All right, let's see. What is your question? I want to make sure I get to it. The bonuses in LA have shrunk 110 to 20, 110 to 120 Monday through Thursday, and 120, 135 Friday to Sunday. SF is still getting huge bonus incentives, which I have witnessed firsthand. For the rides I do in LA, I'd kill it in SF. And yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I think if you guys have watched any of Jay's videos, they can be frustrating for some people because San Francisco just gets such better bonuses than other cities. And again, this is something that you don't have a ton of control over, the bonus offers that you're getting from Uber and Lyft. But we have been doing a bunch of testing, and we've had some drivers, for example, go out and drive only Uber for a week or two, and then see what kind of offers they get from Lyft. And it definitely, these companies know that they're kind of like competing over a lot of the same drivers. So that could be one strategy if you're finding that your bonuses are dropping, especially compared to other drivers in your city. I mean, if Uber just goes out and decides, okay, next week we're going to lower all the bonuses for drivers in LA. I mean, there's not much you can do other than not drive, or maybe that's the week you go try out a new service, or go drive for Lyft. But I definitely have noticed that if you take a week off of Lyft, for example, or take a week off from Uber, sometimes you do get a better bonus offer the next week or the following week. So that's something to keep in mind. But you also don't want to take too many weeks off, because then I think they stop sending you bonus offers. So it's kind of like a little game they all play. Keith says, Dustin is more entertaining. You're more formal. I'll take that as a compliment. Let's see, government workers. Okay, so we talked about the government workers. Murad says, what do you think about Waze Carpool? Anyone use that? There are a lot of carpool apps. Waze launched this one, and they've launched it twice. It's kind of weird. I don't think any of the carpool apps have a great business model. I think that they're actually all kind of doing it wrong. So if you work at a carpool company, reach out to me, because I think I could help you guys a lot. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of drivers complain about getting, 60, 70, 80, 90 cents a mile. Carpool, if you drive like on Waze Carpool, for example, you only get the federal mileage reimbursement rate, which I think is going up to like 58 cents per mile. So it's really, I think if you're doing it for the money, it's not worth it at all. Jay says, is there a newer dash cam model you recommend, or a deal on an existing older model? So I personally really like the Vantrue N2 Pro. So when I first started driving 5 years ago, I was using the Falcon 360, which is kind of old and ghetto now. And I don't know if the company's even still in business, but the new one that I recommend is the Vantrue N2 Pro, and just the quality of the camera is great. Haven't had any problems with it. I actually put one in my wife's car and my car, so it's a little more expensive, but I think with dash cams, and especially electronics in general, you get what you pay for. You never want to go for the cheapest model. If anything, sort of go for like that level above the cheapest model if you're a little tight on funds. So hopefully that explains that. Rideshare Dustin says, I'm rogue. Harry is more for professional. And yeah, definitely, if you guys want to give a little thumbs up to the live stream, I think YouTube will probably like that. Thank you, High Testosterone. Looks like we got some thumbs ups coming in right now. So, we're at 4:45 right now. We'll go for another 10 or 15 minutes answering all your questions. So really appreciate everyone joining. Like I said, we do these monthly YouTube live sessions every single month. I see a lot of familiar names, but I also see a lot of new names, which is awesome. So hopefully I've answered your question. And if you guys aren't watching live, you can always leave a comment below, and I'll make sure I get to it as soon as possible. Robert says, Vantrue, saved my butt with a false passenger injury claim. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that can go wrong. And I think the odds of you ever having to use your dash cam footage are super low, but I talk to thousands of drivers, right? And so even though the odds are maybe like 1 in 10,000, I've probably talked to, tens of thousands of drivers. And so I hear these stories from time to time. And most of the time, honestly, these drivers do not have a dash cam and there's not much I can do for them. But for the once in a while when they do, man, it like really saves their butt. So I would think of it as like or not a cheap, but I mean, I would think of it as an insurance policy. Dan says, Harry, have you gotten any feedback on Uber Pro? Second request. You know what? Yes, we haven't gotten a ton of feedback about Uber Pro, I think because it's been rolled out to limited markets, but I know someone did email me about it recently, and I think we're trying to get him to do a guest post on his experience with Uber Pro, but for the most part, I believe he felt it was pretty positive, because he was getting paid more info about the trip. So if you guys are just hearing about Uber Pro for the first time, we've got a video on our YouTube channel. If you search Uber Pro Rideshare Guy, I'm sure it'll pop up, that explains what that program is. And it's basically kind of a rewards or incentive program for the top drivers in certain cities that may potentially roll out everywhere. So Johnny says, what is the surge versus the surge? I don't know if you're talking about surge versus new surge, but if it is, please let me know. Keith says, please go back and see my question about the video from dash cams. If I can find it, I will. He says, what are the rules about using a dash cam during rideshare and putting the videos on YouTube? Well, I think that the actual rules, in general with dash cams, if you're recording audio, so for example, every state is different, but like in California, for example, you can actually, I believe you can just record video if you wanted to. It's audio where you have to notify the passengers. Now, as far as publishing that video onto YouTube, I would only recommend doing that with your passenger permission, right? And it's pretty easy if they're on a dash cam, right? You can kind of, ease them into it, right? If let's say you wanted to, actually Dave, the Uber slave, is probably a good person to ask since he does a lot of footage with his actual passengers. And I know I've seen a couple of videos, but kind of how I think some YouTubers do it and how I would personally do it was, let them get in the car and, at a certain point to say, hey, by the way, I run a YouTube channel. If you guys don't mind, I actually would love to use this footage on my YouTube channel. And if they say great, then, you kind of have a verbal and a visual commitment, yes, from them. If they say no, then say, okay, no worries. I won't use it. So that's how I would handle it. Saul has an easy question for me. What do you think about Uber Pool? Hate it. I think most drivers hate Uber Pool unless, you're kind of trying to use Uber Pool to get to your Quest bonus a lot faster. So Stevenson says, do you need a California driver's license to drive rideshare in San Francisco or LA? Now, you do need a driver's license. I believe, maybe someone in the audience can chime in and confirm. I believe, I've always lived in California and driven in California, so this has never come up for me, but I do believe you have to have a driver's license for the state that you're in. So yes, the answer to your question is I think you do need a California driver's license to drive anywhere in California. So I'm going to double check that one for you just because I don't know. Travel to Eternity says, I think Ryan is driving, does a great job with YouTube videos. Yeah, he's another good one. Dave says it still violates the terms of service when you record, so it could be a risk. And yeah, I think that actually is a good point, right? Is that Uber and Lyft don't want you, kind of publishing videos of your passengers, but I would be pretty shocked if they deactivated a driver for publishing a video where there was like clearly verbal commitment from them saying that, they could be on the YouTube channel, right? It's only if someone complains. Now, could Uber still deactivate you for that and you be kind of shit out of luck? Yes. So, if your full-time driving is everything, what you depend on to feed your family, do you kind of want to understand the risk? But that's kind of how I would handle it. High Testosterone says, I make at least 25 an hour doing Uber Pool. So that is pretty good. Feel free to elaborate there. Let's see what other questions we have coming in. Any tips on how to handle Lyft's passive aggressive messages about acceptance rate? They drive me crazy. I'm not driving 18 minutes to pick up a passenger. And yeah, I think I saw a couple comments come in. Rideshare Revolution says those emails are meaningless, and I agree. It's really only the cancellation rates that you want to be careful about. So when you're accepting and then canceling too frequently, but if you're just ignoring requests, right? If you see an 18-minute request come on Lyft, for example, which happens a lot in the smaller to medium markets, and you're ignoring those, that's no big deal. I mean, Uber even specifically now has a policy that says you cannot get deactivated for a low acceptance rating, although they may put you in a timeout, Uber timeout for a couple minutes if you ignore too many in a row. But that's something you can do. Julian says, sorry about that. I know I've seen your question come in a few times. Sorry, I didn't get to it till now, Julian, but I definitely want to answer. He says, any discussion on building in a slight delay before Mystro accepts? No time to review. I'd rather not accept instead of canceling. So that's a good point. And, I know I've noticed this at times before when I'm using Mystro. And for those of you guys, who aren't familiar with Mystro, it's an app for Android that allows you to simultaneously drive for Uber and Lyft. It kind of automatically accepts Uber requests and logs you off of Lyft. So it'll log you onto both apps, accept whatever requests come in, log you off of the other app. So it sort of does, if you're already driving for two apps at once, it does all of that automatically. I love it. It's great. It's kind of probably one of the #1 apps I recommend for drivers. And I'm actually speaking with the company on Thursday. So that can be something that I bring up because I feel like that's definitely happened to me before. I also saw another question come in about iPhone, if Mystro is coming to iPhone. And unfortunately, the way the Apple ecosystem is built, Mystro won't be able to come to iPhone in the near future unless they sort of work out a partnership with Apple or a partnership with the rideshare companies themselves to kind of integrate the two, which, it actually may happen. But for now, it's definitely not in the pipeline. Johnny says Mystro does not work on older phones, and I actually agree with that. In general, I would say Mystro, even the Uber driver app and the Lyft driver app tend to work better on newer hardware. So, I mean, if you guys are on a much older phone, these companies test everything on all different phones, but you can kind of imagine they're going to go out and look and say, okay, what are the largest percentage of drivers using? Are they on 1, 2, 3-year-old phones? Probably. So we're not going to go and test everything as much with 4, 5, 6-year-old phones. So that's something to keep in mind in general, not just Mystro, but even Uber and Lyft and all of these companies. So that's something you can check out. Dave says, where is high testosterone making $30 an hour doing pool? I think he might be messing with us. Sup Shady says, I like Maximo, cheaper and better. And, I think this is kind of this company that basically just copied Mystro. They even kind of copied the name. I don't know. I'm kind of not a big fan of this company, Maximo, just because they literally just kind of like took this good idea and ripped it off and kind of pretend like it's their own. That's just, as an entrepreneur, I can't really support another company like that. But, to each their own. Keith says, thanks for going over that for me in regards to the video rules. Johnny says, what is surge versus new surge? I'm an Uber Diamond. Yeah, so I posted a link earlier. We've got an article and a video about this new flat rate surge that Uber is rolling out to a lot of markets. So you can dig into that, but basically it pays you a flat rate instead of a multiplier. And so far the feedback has been pretty bad. I don't think I've talked to a driver that likes it or kind of feels like they're making more. So that is definitely something. Rideshare driver Dustin is signing off. Thank you very much, sir, for joining. And let's see. Ed says, will destination filters go away one day? So I think that destination filters, will definitely, I don't know. I mean, Uber and Lyft have, well, I guess Uber has sort of limited the value of the destination filters right now during the busy times. They don't work as well. or they don't work during busy times, right? When like Uber blocks you from using the destination filters. I think it's like too valuable of a feature for Uber to ever take away. And I think there are just so many times where it doesn't cost Uber anything to allow drivers to use it. But it definitely doesn't seem like, at one point they tested giving drivers like 5 destination filters and everyone loved it. But then they took it away because they said we were using it too much. So I don't think they're going to take it away anytime soon, but I think that it probably is just going to kind of stay as is. So that's something. Jay says, but you also have a vested interest in Mystro though, right? Full disclosure. Yeah, that's a good point. I am an affiliate for Mystro, which I've probably made pretty clear because I'm always saying, use my affiliate link for any, actually any product or service, to be honest, where I'm an affiliate or I have some relationship with them. I always disclose it because I want you guys to know the products and the services that I'm supporting, because I want you, if you trust my opinion, I would want you to use them. So I actually never try to hide any of that. Sometimes I forget to mention it, but definitely, I try to actually always say what products and services I use and what I'm supporting, just so you guys know that if you want to support this channel, for example, you can go sign up with Mystro and we'll receive a small commission for that. Or if you want to go sign up for Fare, but with a lot of these companies, right? Like we have an affiliate code for Fare, Hire a Car, Rideshare rentals here in LA. We've got like affiliate codes for all of them. So for me, I don't really have an incentive to recommend one over the other. I just would kind of try to recommend what's best or what's best for your personal situation. So hopefully that makes sense. Looks like we've got your driver, Mike, signing on last minute. All right, Mike, we'll give you 3 minutes. So better late than never. We've got a lot of good YouTube. Driver Mike has another good channel that you guys can check out. Dave the Uber Slave says, high testosterone is an Uber employee. I don't know about that, but he does seem to have some kind of interesting experience on Uber Pool. I'll have to talk to him after and see how he does it. But for now, I'm pretty skeptical, high testosterone. Sup Shady says, what do you think of FarePilot's app hotspot locator? So I actually just did a video with FarePilot that's going to be coming out pretty soon that I think is pretty cool. And one of the ways that I use FarePilot, so if you guys are not familiar with this app, it sort of helps you find hotspots. And, in the areas that I already drive in LA, like Santa Monica, West Hollywood, downtown, like I already know where to go and where the big events are and what to avoid, more importantly. But LA is a huge place, and even when I get pulled down to Orange County sometimes, I often end up in places where I'm not that familiar with the area, and that's when I found FarePilot app provides a ton of value. You pull it up and it tells you, okay, there's a mall over here, or there's like a big group of restaurants over here, and it'll tell you where these hotspots are. So I would definitely check out the FarePilot app if you guys are curious about that. I really like that hotspot feature for that reason. They're starting to add free bathrooms too, like kind of open bathrooms, which is cool, like in a downtown LA area where there's nowhere to go to the bathroom. And we'll have a video about FarePilot coming out soon. So definitely stay tuned for that. Let's see. Any other questions? Gramito says, I tried FarePilot. It really sucked up my data plan. Phone overheated. I haven't found that on my phone, but I wonder what type of phone you're on. And I'm going to go ahead and answer 1 or 2 more questions right now, and then we'll sign off. And also make sure, if you guys have made it this long, definitely stay tuned for the giveaway. But let's see, what questions do we have? Stevenson says, do you think Uber X is better than XL? Honestly, I think they're pretty similar at a high level, unless, let's say you already have a minivan because you have a family and you've got a bunch of kids, then XL, I think, kind of pushes the scales there. Or if the times that you drive kind of line up with when and where XL passengers might be going, right? So like here in LA, there's like a lot of XL rides to and from the airport. So if you love doing airport rides and early AM airport rides, maybe you're better off with an XL. If you don't mind kind of the Friday, Saturday night, everyone piling into an XL, going to the bars, that's an option. So, I don't know that it's like a slam dunk one over the other. We've got a really good interview though with a XL driver named John O'Connell on the podcast. And I'll go ahead and leave a link right now. And he, I'm actually not an XL driver. I've done Select and X, but I haven't done XL. So you can kind of learn a lot from him. We went into a ton of detail about that. And you're right. I got 1 minute to wrap this up, guys. Travel to eternity. Uber Girl Paula says, I hate LAX. I agree. I never go to LAX anymore. What other questions can I add? How much? Oh, that's for high testosterone. XL is great at the airport. That I agree with. And of course, if you're in an area that has the rematch feature, that's also good. Let's see. Delco driver says, I never accept an Uber pool. Awesome. So I think I answered pretty much all the questions tonight. So let's go ahead and do this giveaway. So I think tonight, I'll let you guys decide. Should I go with the giveaway tonight? We can do hats tonight, or we can do books. So this is the first part of the giveaway. You guys let me know what you want to win potentially. I'm not guaranteeing anything, but you guys want to win books tonight or hats? We'll see what the comments come in. Uber Girl Paula says, how is your baby doing, Harry? He's doing great. I think I showed a little picture of him earlier, but if you guys can see that, that's my baby. He's actually turns 1 on Saturday. So we're having a little birthday, or he turns 1 on the 18th. I don't even know his birthday. So, but I think his birthday is going to be on Saturday. So we're going to have a little birthday party for him. So it looks like we've got overwhelming choice for the book. And I guess you guys don't like my hats, which is fine. But we'll go ahead and give away probably 3 or 4 books tonight. And in order to enter our book giveaway, so if you guys want to win a copy of my book, The Rideshare Guide, let's see, what do I call it? Everything you need to know about driving for Uber, Lyft, and other ride-sharing companies, which the book has been pretty popular. I think we're up to like 51 or 2 or maybe more 5-star reviews on Amazon, so doing well. I want to know what your #1 tip for driving in 2019 is. You know, we talked earlier about the winter slowdown. So if you guys have any tips to avoid the winter slowdown, or just in general, your #1 tip for driving in 2019, email me the answer, harry@therideshareguy.com. Don't type it into the live chat right now. I probably should have said that first, but email me, harry@therideshareguy.com, subject line YouTube Live, and let me know your #1 tip for driving in 2019. I'm going to go read all the answers, and I'm going to pick 3 or 4. I'll pick, you guys were good tonight. We got a bunch of super chats. So I'm going to pick 4 winners to give away a copy of my book, and I will send you a copy of the Rideshare Guide. All you need to do is send me an email, harry@therideshareguy.com, with your #1 tip for driving in 2019, and make them good, because I'm going to pick based on the answers I like the most. This isn't a random drawing, so you got to give a good answer if you want to win, or maybe it'll be funny or whatever you got, but something that excites me will be picked for you know, to win. So hopefully you guys had a lot of fun tonight. It looks like we've already got some good tips coming in here on the live chat, but email me, harry@therideshareguy.com. And as mentioned, if you guys haven't given this video a thumbs up, please do so now. I would really appreciate it. And we'll be back next month in February, and we'll go live again. So if you guys haven't subscribed, definitely subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so that you know when we go live. But typically it's going to be Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific. We'll go live for an hour. And that was a lot of fun. I really appreciate each and every one. We had a great conversation tonight. I don't think we had any trolls tonight either. I didn't even have to mute anyone or kick anyone out. So that was always nice. You guys were like very respectful. That's weird for YouTube and online. So I appreciate that. I've got a great audience, and very thankful for that. So without further ado, I will see you guys next month. Take care and stay safe.